Alright, what's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode here on Shark Realm. As today is a pretty interesting episode, as it appears that collectors who have been a diehard of the Mortal Kombat franchise since the beginning, or even who came casually later on, have recently received their copy of the latest Mortal Kombat book, which is the Mortal Kombat Flawless Victory, a visual history of the iconic series. We know that this is actually one of two books because the second book is actually part of the Mortal Kombat Collector's Edition, which has, all those iconic Mortal Kombat video games on the modern consoles. And apparently that book is supposedly roughly in the same category. I already went over comparing and contrasting both books and the descriptions in a previous video, so you can go ahead and check that out. But in this particular book, we were aware that there's a lot of, artworks, character bios, and story origins and lore explorations and all that stuff. However, I've read a lot of comments over on Twitter or X. I've read a lot of comments on Reddit, and apparently the book has been not been receiving pretty well. And I don't want to say it's been too negative in the comments because those who are casual fans of Mortal Kombat will appreciate it because it does have, your basic knowledge on what you need to know about Mortal Kombat and their characters, or even levels and just the background of like certain, the history of Mortal Kombat. But if you're a diehard Mortal Kombat fan and you know your source materials, you know your content, then people have been having some issues with it. And the first foremost issue that people were having is the concept that a lot of the artworks or the renders that were used within this book contain AI. So to put in perspective, we know that the old video games and the old iconic artwork were more digital or pixelated versions, and it's kind of hard to expand those images to make it crispy and clear. So I can totally understand how that could be a problem. However, if you look on Google or if you look on Twitter or X, I'll keep some descriptions or some links to Twitter users in the description below. You'll see that they use generative AI to blow up the photos to make it look more pristine, but it also comes with a setback that they're not accurate. They look pretty awful. There's some I guess you can say, misconceptions of how the characters are supposed to be looking at, in terms of like wonky eyes or the masks of Sub-Zero looking like it's not like, I don't want to say centered, but it's not like right up in the, it's like kind of like all over the place. Melina's eyes are a little bit wonkier. Katana looks a bit weird. So even in the artwork within the book kind of has a couple of AI generated stuff. So people were showing their little frustrations with that because we know that there was also a compendium book that was supposed to come out, but that WB or even NetherRealm Studios uh, didn't allow that book to happen, which was supposed to be more an in-depth look of the Mortal Kombat iconic franchise. But we had this book instead. And again, we don't know what the collector's edition version will look like, but for those who got this, were also disappointed because they also found some errors in the book. They found some text to be a little bit weak. They found like the book to be a little bit lackluster and underwhelming for a Mortal Kombat book. Um, Now, there are a couple of images that I do want to showcase here, and I do have a couple of few frustrations that I want to share because I was kind of holding back on whether or not I wanted to pre-order this or not, but I do want to share some insights on how I personally feel about it because I kind of agree, and this was kind of like a visual negativity that I already saw right in the beginning. One of the things is that, yeah, we have the awesome artworks of stuff like that, but I feel like they focused a little too heavy on the modern stuff compared to the classics because the classics is what made Mortal Kombat the way it is. So even if you look at this little segment right here in the book, you can see that they have a lot of Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11, even MK1 images, whereas we barely get the other Mortal Kombat games, even though they're pretty much going in order from like 1 to, I believe, 3 and 4, and then making their way down to MK1, but still it's focusing more on the modern than the new, or the old. Now we have John Tobias artwork, which is cool, and then all these other stuff, but one of the things I don't necessarily like about this book, even not owning it, is like, yeah, it does give you character renders and artworks and designs and stuff like that. But as someone who wants to have a Mortal Kombat book, I want them to focus more on, like, I don't know, to go more deep, more in depth, and just kind of give us a better idea of these characters, because it's very like, yeah, I love the pictures, I love the images, but at the same time, it's very, I feel like it's good for a casual read, but it doesn't still deliver if you go even based off of just these small little examples that I showed you. They need to really dive deep into Mortal Kombat, start from the beginning of how the one being was created, et cetera, and then perhaps they do have that, but if you look at other Mortal Kombat websites or like fan made websites, they really dig deep and give us a whole explanation of how Mortal Kombat started, whereas I feel like this is a little bit more on the weaker side. So, other than that, when it comes to like artwork, I want to see, like, yeah, they gave us John Tobias artwork and stuff, but I also want to see, like explanations and just like talk about Mortal Kombat 1, the 1992 versions, and, get interviews, like talk about the lore, the music, and all that other stuff. And I feel like these books are just not delivering and they could be a lot better. So, I know that's kind of a little nitpicking too hard, and perhaps they do have it in this book, but it's one of those things where I look at it and I look at the visuals, and I'm kind of one of those collectors of Mortal Kombat and diehard fans of Mortal Kombat where it's like, I want to see artwork where you start from Scorpion at like a whole segment on Scorpion. You start off with like the original first ever drawing, then you make your way all the way up to, let's say, Mortal Kombat 1, if that's the latest, that's up into this book. These books are kind of like you get one main artwork from like a modern game, you get a little render from like Mortal Kombat 3, and then you get like something from like maybe Mortal Kombat 2 or something. But what I'm trying to say is I want to have like the whole page or the whole book filled with starting from 1992, make your way all the way up to MK1 and really dive deep into it rather than just giving us like it kind of feels like how a GameStop or EB Games or whatever game store you had, where they had like the guidebooks where you open the books and then you see, like for Sega and Nintendo, how you had these visual guides of, you just have a character on the side and a little description, and then you have the buttons of how you play them. And I feel like this is what this book kind of is. For a book that's kind of like a flawless victory of visual history, like it needed to be a lot better, and those who have bought it have shared their frustrations and they're just not too happy with it. So for a $45 book, it was originally 60 but now 45. I will probably buy this at some point, but I'm going to wait until it goes at least under $20 and then I'll buy it. Otherwise, I still don't think this is worth a $45 book. Otherwise, let me know in the comments below if you have this book. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Do you still like the book? Otherwise, let me know in the comments below, and we'll wait until the consensus comes for the collector's edition um, a version comes out, and we'll see how that one can hold up against this one. So, other than that, I want to thank you guys all for watching. Be sure to give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next episode.